Bomber identified. Thai police hunt for the man responsible for a deadly Bangkok blast. Move defended. The U.S. ambassador to the Holy See clarifies the relocation of our embassy. Fiesta or fiasco. As the administration celebrates closer ties with Cuba, opponents remain skeptical. And sacred craftsmanship. The altar for the papal mass at the National Shrine takes shape. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, August 18th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Thailand's prime minister vows to track down the person responsible for a bombing that killed nearly 24 people. Police in Bangkok are getting closer to identifying a suspect, as Wyatt Goolsby reports from the Thai embassy here in Washington. Wyatt?
Brian, both the Prime Minister and the Thai government are offering their condolences to the victims and families of Monday's bombing. The White House is also reaching out to Thailand, condemning the attack as well. Meanwhile, Thai authorities are also looking for new clues into the incident itself.
Authorities in Thailand are carefully looking at these pictures, grainy images of a man in a yellow shirt carrying a bag. Police believe he could be the person who set off the deadly explosion in central Bangkok Monday. Cell phone video shows the bomb going off during the evening rush hour.
I hear this huge explosion. I could actually feel it and hear it. It's like somebody just pushes you, suddenly out of the blue. It felt like that, and there was like this huge gust of wind and debris just flying through you.
Sanjeev Vyas was on the skywalk when the bomb went off, but he didn't know what it was.
Because at first I thought maybe it was an accident, that two cars collided and probably something just exploded. But no, but what I felt was enormous.
The attack hit a shrine in central Bangkok, a popular site among Buddhists, Hindus, and Sikhs. The shrine is also a big draw for tourists at a busy intersection near a shopping mall. Police report more than 22 dead and more than 140 injured. Thailand's prime minister promising to bring those responsible to justice for what he describes as the worst attack in the country's history. A second blast went off today near a pier in Bangkok. No one was injured. Police are trying to figure out if the bombings are linked. One bright spot, hundreds of people lining up to donate blood at the Thai Red Cross. Officials have urgently asked for blood since the attack.
Among the dead were people from China, Hong Kong, and Singapore. The Thai government is pledging to protect foreigners who are visiting their country. They're also promising to make sure they update foreign countries as they investigate. Brian?
Thank you. Wyatt Goolsby at the Thai embassy here in Washington. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The discovery of the plane's black boxes will hopefully help determine why an Indonesian flight crashed into a mountain Sunday. More than 70 rescuers reached the crash site today. They have been hindered by rugged, forested terrain and bad weather. The bodies of all 54 people on board who died in the crash have been recovered. The Italian Coast Guard rescues 113 more migrants overnight. 2 Coast Guard boats were involved in the operation off the southern Italian coast. The migrants were transferred to a Croatian Navy ship headed to a Sicilian port. At least 2,300 migrants have died at sea this year, with thousands more rescued. Hundreds of migrants arrive on the Greek island of Kos each day. Those who survive the dangerous journey often camp outside, but they're happy to be alive. Catherine Zeltner reports.
This is how hundreds of new visitors arrive on the Greek island of Kos every day, on inflatable dinghies from Turkey. This group of Syrians stumble out onto dry land, happy to have survived the night's journey, away from their war-torn homeland. They walk past the tent city that extends along the Kos beachfront. We are from Syria, they announce.
But you must go to the ship.
Many of Kos's locals have offered food, water, and washing facilities. But this time, overwhelmed by the numbers, residents shout at them to leave and register with police. This is where they go. The new cruise ship sent in by Greece docked to house and register Syrian refugees. They wait here for hours. 27-year-old Faris Sai from Damascus wants to study physics in Germany.
No one will stay here. No one, because we know that this country have problems, economic problem. We just want to go.
For families with children, Kos is a safe place to rest before moving on to places like Germany. Hanan Rad was told there was no room at a hotel for her family. Even so, she's grateful.
The Greek people are very nice and give us many things. Toys for our children, water, and some food. Yeah.
As the summer sun sets, migrants camp for another night in the open and watch as new arrivals come in the next morning. Catherine Seltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. Back here in the States, a Kentucky county clerk gets more time to take her case to a federal appeals court. Kim Davis has refused to grant marriage licenses to anyone in Rowan County since the U.S. Supreme Court ruling legalizing so-called gay marriage. Last week, U.S. District Judge David Bunning ordered her to issue licenses despite her moral objections. The judge has now stayed his decision while Davis appeals her case. Attorneys for a gay couple who sued a Texas county clerk for denying them a marriage license on religious grounds say they've reached a settlement. The $44,000 settlement amounts to attorney's fees. The couple was granted a license the day they filed their lawsuit. How do I get tickets to a papal mass? Many are asking that question just weeks away now from the Pope's U.S. visit. It won't be easy. The Junipero Serra Canonization Mass here in Washington, D.C. will be outside the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. The Archdiocese of Washington is not yet releasing how many tickets will actually be distributed. They are planning for 25,000 seats at the Mass. They expect 20,000 more people can stand. Meanwhile, in New York City, Pope Francis celebrates Mass at Madison Square Garden. Tickets will not be sold. They're extremely limited. The Archdiocese of New York plans to distribute tickets to parishes and Catholic organizations. Groups can extend invitations to their members. And finally, the Holy Father closes the World Meeting of Families with Mass on Philadelphia's Benjamin Franklin Parkway. A formal process for distributing tickets still has not been finalized, with more than 1 million people expected. The Archdiocese of Philadelphia plans to show that Mass on jumbotrons across the city. Some of D.C.'s poorest are likely to get closer to Pope Francis than Washington's elite. We talked earlier this week with Msgr. John Enzler with Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Washington about the Pope's plans to participate in a meal with the homeless. Monsignor, Catholic Charities here in D.C. is a focal point of the Pope's visit. How did that happen?
Well, we're so excited because I think through Cardinal Wuerl's influence and others who thought when the Pope comes to Washington, he should come to the place where he has a heart for the poor and the vulnerable. So we were, I think, one of the prime places, maybe the most prime place to come and say, what's going on in Catholic Charities, what's happening for the poor, the vulnerable, for those who are abused, whatever my situation might be. He's coming to greet our people and our guests, and we're so thrilled to have him come.
Do you think there's any symbolism in the fact that he'll be leaving Capitol Hill and coming to Maria's Meals, where the poor are being served on a daily basis?
It's a monstrous symbol, I think.
Yeah.
He'll be in the power halls of our country, speaking to Congress, Supreme Court, Joint Chiefs of Staff, leaving there, coming to our place where he'll be with the poor, blessing them, maybe serving food with us to serve them. It's going to be a symbol that, listen, I'm with the powerful, but my real ministry, my real heart is with the poor.
And that seems to be where he is most comfortable.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So what will he be doing in connection with Maria's Meals here in D.C.?
When he arrives at Catholic Church, he'll walk through St. Patrick's Church and greet many of our clients there. Then come out on the front steps of our agency, which is on G Street. And we have, every week we serve a meal there, every Wednesday night. He'll do the exact same thing. He'll bless the food. And we suspect he'll walk around the crowd and greet the people, maybe even sit down to eat himself, or maybe serve some people. We're not sure because he's so spontaneous, but we know when he sees the people who are in need, he's going to be drawn to them, and they'll be drawn to him, of course, as well.
In conjunction with this, you've launched the Walk with Francis initiative. Describe that.
Well, we have people who are going to be able to come to see the Pope directly, but how many people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, will not have the opportunity? So we come up with an idea. What if people could do something to honor his presence and also change their own hearts? What if they were willing to walk with Francis? Walk with Francis. So it can be service, it can be action, it can be prayer, it can be learning different ways, but pick something that's easy, that's flexible for you, that's measurable, and say, I'll do this to change my heart, to open my heart to others, and to welcome Francis to our country.
And why do you think every single pledge is significant to the individual as well as to the whole?
Well, individually, we all need it. encouragement to change. We all need a kind of an opportunity to say, what am I doing with my life? What's important to me? And the Pope coming is a pretty important event, and I want to be part of that. In fact, part of history. I'll be part of something special. So if that happens for a whole city or for a whole church in Washington, I think we're a changed church. We're a changed city. People now are more open, more generous, more caring, more understanding, more compassionate. All those things can happen with one simple thing. I'll do this. That one thing can make a difference for the whole church.
And of course, it could spread from the Archdiocese of Washington out into the world. Msgr. John Enzler with Catholic Charities here in the Archdiocese of Washington. Thanks for being with us, Msgr.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Msgr. Enzler joined us yesterday. And coming up, why did the U.S. move its Holy See embassy? The ambassador explains. And a historical first. 2 tough women earned the right to be called Army Rangers. Here's a Tuesday tidbit for you. The United States and the Holy See established diplomatic relations in 1984. Prior to that, some U.S. presidents designated personal envoys to the Holy See. They discussed international humanitarian and political issues with the Vatican. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening, August the 18th. I'm Brian Patrick, and the U.S. has separate embassies to Italy and to the Holy See. But just last week, the U.S. Embassy to the Holy See, which is a separate state, moved to the grounds of our embassy to Italy. Alan Holdren visits with Ken Hackett, U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See, talking about that and more.
Some perceive this as sort of U.S. government decision to also respond to a diminished interest in the Vatican. Is this the case?
No, it's not the case at all. In fact, it's rather the opposite. The compound is a large campus with streets inside. It includes the chancellery for the embassy to Italy. It includes the chancellery for the embassy to the FAO and many UN agencies over on the other part of the campus, and then our section here. It's a beautiful old building. We restored it. It's magnificent, in fact. So we haven't downgraded. We've increased the size, saved a lot of money, and basically have a more secure building.
And this takes place during your now 2-year tenure of being ambassador to the Holy See. How is it going for you so far?
It's great. I mean, I'm enjoying it. Pope Francis keeps all the ambassadorial corps on their toes because he brings up new ideas continually, and you want to stay with him as much as you can. So it's been very enjoyable. And now getting ready for the trip to Cuba and the United States makes it even more enjoyable.
The Obama administration that you represent here as a part of the State Department and the Catholic Church haven't always seen eye to eye on everything. Where do you see the greatest points of synergy between the two?
We actually see eye to eye on more things than we disagree on, and particularly in the arena of foreign policy. Those issues of concern about persecution of Christians and other minorities. Human trafficking is something that the Holy Father has taken an interest in, and we have had a long-standing interest and engagement in. Human rights issues writ large, poverty and overcoming poverty around the world. War, the terrible scourges that we see in the Middle East, in Ukraine, these are all issues that we find supportive collaboration on.
Thank you, Ambassador Hackett and our Alan Holdren. And she is strongly pro-life, but Republican presidential candidate Carly Fiorina says all people should be appalled with Planned Parenthood. Fiorina is referring to the shocking undercover videos recently released.
When you can have employees who target poor communities, who are pushing women into later-term abortion so they can more successfully harvest body parts, even though late-term abortions are demonstrably bad for women. You can only be horrified when you see employees picking over a petri dish for body parts while they say, "Look, it's a baby." There is no excuse. Planned Parenthood must be defunded.
And this controversy is now spreading to Europe, where Planned Parenthood also operates. Sophia Kuby is the director of the Brussels office of ADF International, a global partner of Alliance Defending Freedom, Skyping with us from Brussels. So tell us how the Planned Parenthood videos have made their way into the European Parliament.
Sure. Well, for now, there is unfortunately not much debate yet. In August, everything is shut down. It's the summer break here in the European institutions. But just before the summer break, a member of the European Parliament has made an official request to the European Commission asking if the European Commission, which is basically the government of the European Union, is aware of these videos, if it is aware of the evidence shown in these videos, and if they will condemn the practice publicly, and if they will suspend the EU funding of Planned Parenthood until thorough investigations are carried out in the US.
So there are Planned Parenthood facilities in Europe?
Absolutely, and they operate under an international network called the International Planned Parenthood Federation, and they are a major recipient of EU funding. They have, between 2007 and 2015 alone, received over 10 million dollars actually in EU funding. So they are heavily funded by the European Commission.
Sophia, what is the attitude towards abortion there in Belgium?
Well, actually, it's abortion is Belgium is not different from the rest of Western Europe. It is really largely regarded as a right, as a woman's right. It is different in Eastern Europe, but Belgium being in Western Europe, it is very much a liberal attitude towards abortion, and it's considered a right of the woman.
So are people there aware of these undercover videos, and if so, how do they respond to them?
They have been viewed by a large number of people, I would say. It has gotten up in the press, in the mainstream media, here and there, but it's, of course, we are still far away from the scandal that it is in the US right now. But you can be sure that after the summer break here, we will work very hard to raise this in the public debate and to bring it to the attention of the European institutions, because we believe that the matter is so severe that funding needs to be suspended until this matter is sorted out. And even the suspicion that this could happen also outside of the US should be enough to really suspend funding immediately.
Very eye-opening. Sophia Kuby with the Brussels office of ADF International. Thanks for joining us by Skype tonight.
Thank you.
And for the first time in the history of the U.S. Army, 2 women earned the right to wear Ranger tabs on their uniforms. They are the first women to complete the grueling combat training program. The Army's Ranger headquarters in Fort Benning, Georgia, says the women and 94 men passed the tough 62-day course. They have now proven their ability to overcome fatigue, hunger, and stress during combat operations. Up next, thousands gather in Siena to watch one of the most ancient bareback horse races in the world.
A sneak peek of the altar Pope Francis will use next month in D.C. I'm Jason Calvi. I'll have that story coming up.
In about a month, Pope Francis becomes the 3rd consecutive pope to visit Cuba. St. John Paul II made his historic pastoral trip to the island nation in 1998. Benedict XVI visited in 2012, marking the 400th anniversary of the miraculous statue of Our Lady of Charity. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening, August 18th. I'm Brian Patrick. Protests erupt in Cuba following Friday's opening of the U.S. Embassy in Havana. This video appears to show the Ladies in White and other democracy activists being arrested Sunday. The Ladies in White, founded by relatives of jailed dissidents, oppose the Castro regime. The Capitol Hill Cubans group claims the women were assaulted by secret police. Mike Gonzalez is with us. Mike is a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation and a native of Cuba. Mike, what is the continuing arrest that you often refer to of the Ladies in White? What does this mean for the people of Cuba with all the new developments there?
Not just the Ladies in White. I mean, of all dissidents, and they have really been stepped up since President Obama made his announcement on December 17th. And it is very clear, Brian, what it is. It's Raul Castro and the communist government telling the people of Cuba, you're all alone now. Nobody has your back. we can do with you what we want. We can beat you up, we can put you in prison. Arrests have increased a great deal in the last 6 months, and so it's Castro saying the U.S. has washed its hands off of you. You belong to us.
What do you think the U.S. should be doing now that supposedly we have more normalized relations?
We have normalized relations with a very abnormal regime, with a military dictatorship, a one family. It's a communist military dynasty 90 miles from our shores. The U.S. should obviously be doing what it has always said since John Quincy Adams, you know, very eloquent, 1821, with the Secretary of State speech on July the 4th saying, America is not going to look abroad for monsters to destroy, but we would always side with freedom. We will always tell the people who are being oppressed, we're with you, and we will always tell the monsters that are oppressing you, you should not be doing this. This is beyond this is beyond the pale. Secretary Kerry did not say that. I listened to his remarks when he raised the flag over the U.S. Embassy in Havana last Friday. He didn't say that. President Obama never speaks clearly to the tormentors of the people of Cuba.
But supposedly now, Americans will be more free to travel to Cuba. Is there anything we can do as the American people if we don't think the government's doing what it should?
But it's very unseemly to travel to a place that is being oppressed. It's like, for lack of a better analogy, it's going to a zoo for human beings where people are kept in a cage, in a virtual cage. I don't think Americans should travel to Cuba. I don't think Americans should buy products that are made by the military of Cuba, and that's a lot of the products. The military, the Gaesa, which is the holding company of the military, controls 80 to 90% of the economy. Every time an American travels to Cuba, stays at a hotel, plays golf, takes transport, it's putting money into the hands of Cuba, of Raúl Castro's son-in-law, the controller of Gaesa.
I know you're very firm on your beliefs. Mike Gonzalez, the Heritage Foundation, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, about 25,000 people are expected at next month's canonization Mass for Blessed Junipero Serra. Pope Francis celebrates that Mass outside the National Shrine here in D.C. September 23rd. Tonight, Jason Calvi updates preparations now in their final weeks.
Journalists come out of the woodwork to capture furniture fit for a pope.
The back of the papal chair.
These are the ordinary tools of the carpenter, but this project is heavenly.
To be able to go ahead and make an altar for the sacrifice of the Mass is the highlight of my life. To do it for the Holy Father is, I mean, it's over the top.
A repeat experience for Deacon Dave Calhoun and his St. Joseph's Carpentry Shop. They crafted the altar and chair for Pope Benedict's 2008 trip to D.C. Now they're making the altar and other items for Pope Francis.
It means a lot to me, to my entire family, and for any immigrant who comes to this country hoping for a new life and to have a profession. It's a very beautiful profession.
Doug Fouth's cabinet company is creating the chairs.
It's like going to the World Series.
Doug is looking to the foster father of Jesus for inspiration for his daily work.
Joseph was a carpenter, and he did it every day. You know, he didn't necessarily do a Pope's chair, but he was making furniture, and so that's just how I treat it, how I work it. It's not just our first look at the altar Pope Francis will use when he celebrates Mass in D.C., but it's the first chance Catholic University students who designed it are checking this out.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome to see the altar.
These three CUA students came up with the winning design, but they didn't choose all the materials.
You know what they're using, the silk of the chair? No. What they're getting?
They're using bridal,
stuff like wedding gown material.
Yeah.
A fitting touch for the Mass, also called the Wedding Feast of the Lamb. In Maryland, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Jason. And finally tonight, first held in 1482, it's one of the most ancient bareback horse races in the world. Thousands gather in Siena, Italy Monday to watch the Palio di Siena. The race is the culmination of several days of fierce but friendly competition between Siena's neighborhoods. Jockeys dress in 15th century costumes bearing a neighborhood's color. The race lasts only about a minute and a half and consists of 3 laps around the Piazza del Campo. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. What a race. We leave you visiting Rome's Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, housing relics St. Helen brought from the Holy Land in the 4th century. It's built on the site of St. Helen's home. Today, August 18th, is her feast day. St. Helen, pray for us.